And welcome to another episode of the starting lineup. I'm Arnav Sarkar. We've got our usual starters, myself, Kapil, Jitesh, and we have a special guest, Alex Carmenaty from WRSU. This has been a goal of mine since we started the show to bring on guests. We have a few more planned for the upcoming weeks as well. So a great way to get started with the guest lineup. The usual two big sports are still going on right now. The NBA finals are in full swing. Nuggets have a 3-1 lead on the Miami Heat, and the Stanley Cup finals are going strong as well. Today's game four. Vegas Golden Knights have a 2-1 lead over the Florida Panthers. Florida winning in overtime in game three after two dominant Vegas wins. So interesting game four. It's always a pivotal one when one team's up 2-1 because that's where it could either go to 3-1 or Florida could possibly tie up the series at 2-2. We're gonna actually start with that. We've got a few hockey fans here on the panel, and then we'll shift over to the NBA later on in the episode. So how are you guys doing and what do you guys think about the Stanley Cup final and what's going to happen tonight?
So my takeaway is that from the I'd say the big takeaway from game three, Vegas broke down its defensive structure. Like and this is something that happened quite carelessly within game two itself, where um sometimes the defensemen, they were just giving too much of a window on Vegas side. Like, I think it was mainly on the left defenseman side. They'd give like a little too much ice to the winger that was approaching them, and so like by cutting in on the inside, the outside would be exposed for the winger and take a shot. So um Florida had Florida had more from what I saw, Florida had more like an offensive advantage because Vegas's defense was playing quite sloppily, and it's not really a testament to how terrible Vegas has been doing, or how good Florida's been doing. Like it's more in the sense that um that the discipline wasn't really present. That's what I'd say. But um as I said before in the previous episode, the Florida Panthers are a cockroach that refuses to die. Like,
So are the
doesn't matter.
Heat. So are the Heat,
So are the
man.
Heat,
It's
yeah.
South
Well,
Florida sports too.
the Heat kind of have a stranglehold. Well, are kind of being strangled right now. But of course, Denver finished the job. But we'll get to that in a bit. But
Mhm.
uh, the Florida Panthers, um, they can be lethal at any second. Like, they
Mhm.
just turned from they just turned from a pile of nothing into John Wick, and within about 4 seconds. So,
And this was
but
a good bounce back win for them, And
well,
tonight's
Florida
Yeah.
nearly lost the game, but like
they did,
they
Yeah, they
nearly
were
did.
down 2-1,
They're
like
down
the
2-1 in
final two
overtime. Yeah, I
three
mean, if you need,
minutes too.
Well,
I mean,
I mean,
overtime is partly luck too, right? I mean,
no. There's it's all skill in overtime. But the thing is, Vegas should be up 3-0 if Ivan Barbashev didn't hit the post with like 5 minutes left to go. Like, Bobrovsky was fantastic. There's no questioning that. But Vegas missed a very big opportunity, and I fear it could bite them in the butt.
Well, first off,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, you go ahead, Alex.
yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show today. Number one. Number two,
Yeah.
this Florida Panthers team is the definition of a Cinderella story, and you're seeing it in round one, round two, round three, even here in the finals. And I mean, the point of this Florida Panthers team being down 2-0, backs against the wall, coming on home. They get their butts kicked in Vegas, outscored 12-4 in those first two games. They come on home. They know that they need to win this game. And they started strong. Montour had a great first goal of the contest, but Vegas, answered very quickly. The fear was for this team, with especially 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left in that final period, is Florida going to have the juice to keep it going? And guess who did it? Good old Matt Tkachuk.
Matt goddamn Kachuk.
He's been incredible. I mean, honestly, going in, he's my favorite for the Conn Smythe Trophy this year. And in general, if you see this Florida team with how good they've been, Matt Tkachuk has been the backbone. 4 game-winning goals. Three
No,
of
no,
them.
no. Florida Panthers would be nowhere without Sergei Bobrovsky. Kachuk has been excellent, but Bobrovsky gets my Conn Smythe if the Panthers win it.
I'm going to get into that in a bit. I mean, Bobrovsky's been phenomenal, and he's been a rock solid too. But if you look at pressure time in 4 overtimes, Matt Tkachuk
I
game-winning goal.
agree.
On
I
the
agree.
road. On the
I mean,
road, 2
and
game-winning goal.
and I'd say let's not count out Carter Verhaeghe. He's been fantastic too. Like, I mean, probably not Conn Smythe fantastic, but he's been quite damn good.
Right. Look, I mean, Matt Tkachuk has been Mr. Florida. That's the point I'm trying to make here. He's been Mr. Florida. He's been the top guy. I mean, he's got 10, 11 goals now in the postseason, over 23 points altogether, the 4 game-winning goals to 3 in overtime. He's the guy that's the face of Florida. And if you look at, especially Game 5, Round 1 versus Boston, who got the game-winning goal in overtime to keep Florida alive? Good old Matt Tkachuk. And let's also keep in mind, for Matthew Tkachuk to be involved on every play, goal, assist, whatever it is, I think the game-tying goal he scored in Game 3 has just summed up the remarkable run he's been leading for this Florida team.
Yeah, I mean, he single-handedly destroyed Carolina, single-handedly.
Yeah, including with 4 seconds to go to sweep the Hurricanes and make the trip to the finals this year. But the point is that this Florida team does not know how to go away. They don't go away. They keep going until their final breath has been, given. And they're not going to give up. And even in Game 3, when they're, down 2-1, they've got 2 minutes to go, whatever it is, Matt Tkachuk finds a way to deliver. And then in overtime, Carter Verhaeghe, who also was a hero to clinch the series versus Boston back in Round 1, throws a shot on net.
Unfortunately.
Aiden Hill. And, Florida makes it 2-1. Here's what we should expect for Game 4. And Game 4 is going to be really interesting. In my opinion, I think Florida forces Game 5 2-2. I think we'll see a best-of-7 series in general, and I think we're going to expect Game 6 with Florida winning in Game 4 tonight. I think how they do that, A, easily Matt Tkachuk keep on going. B, Bobrovsky keep doing his thing. But what's going to be the main goal, the main differential for Florida in Game 4? Not just how they start, but how they play a full 60 minutes. If they're going to be able to, work on these forechecks, if they're going to be able to get Vegas in pressure situations, if they can continue to frustrate the Vegas defense, that's going to be the make or break moment for Florida. That the icebreaker, no pun intended, to
Agreed.
Get things going for Florida. And keep in mind, they're home again. And before this, they have one more home game before they go back to Vegas in Game 5. So I expect Florida to win. I think Matt Tkachuk's going to be the main reason why they win this game. But in general, this Florida team works well when they're a team-oriented squad and when Matt Tkachuk is the head. For Vegas, you see this Vegas team, Aiden Hill's been the great backbone, but you've seen so many times, whether it be versus Winnipeg, versus Edmonton, even versus Dallas to a certain extent, this Vegas defense has crumbled in some big situations, in some big moments. And the key thing is going to be, can this Vegas defensive unit play a full 60 minutes after losing a tough game, a game you were winning, and then you lost it in overtime? Can you hold the fortress for the full time? At the same time, can your offense give you more support outside of guys like Jonathan Marchessault? Can Jack Eichel get going offensively? Can some other players get going on the offensive side for the VGK? And you mentioned Ivan Barbashev. I mean, Barbashev is just a great player, all around, six-figure player, great tool to have either in any part of the lineup. He's got to get going more offensively.
Definitely.
And if you're Vegas, you have to look back to Game 2 and implement the style of play you had versus Florida in Game 2. You have to bring that on the road to Game 4 to shut down Florida and quiet that crowd.
Yeah, the way I see it, like the way Florida wins is because I've noticed this in every single series. The way Florida wins, first thing is to piss off their opponents greatly. Like once they get under their opponent's skin, Florida immediately has the edge. But where Vegas needs to win the series, like one problem I see with Vegas and their defensive structure, they only have one great pairing, Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo. Their other two pairings, they could use some work, honestly. And like, if you like, Marchessault has been the primary scorer for Vegas, like throughout the playoffs. Like Jack Eichel, he's been on and off. Barbashev like puts in something like here and there. Mark Stone is great. Mark Stone has been showing up, but the problem is Vegas is inconsistent on offense.
Hmm.
That's their main problem. And I'd like to see guys like people like Carlson need to step up. Like Carlson needs to step up. Like Vegas can't just rely on three guys to like put the puck in the net like 6 times per game. Like because no game is ever going to be like that. No two Stanley Cup Finals games are the same. I mean, it may be like that in the regular season, but this is the Stanley Cup Finals. Like there's zero room for error. But and Paul Maurice has been leading a season which is just defied logic as a whole, like for Florida. But like Bruce Cassidy is a disciplined head coach. Like we've seen it with Vegas that they were like they don't tend to force penalties that I mean they tend to force penalties to get themselves on the power play, but they don't tend to be the team that ends up having to do the penalty kill all that often. But either way, like that seems to work to Florida's advantage, regardless of whether they're shorthanded on the power play or on 5-on-5. The problem is Florida, like no matter how many fire extinguishers you got, Florida's still on fire.
Of course. No,
Yeah.
I mean, this Florida team is not going to go down easily, and the fact that they upset Boston, smashed Toronto, and destroyed Carolina, they made this run for a reason. They're not going to just go make this run and get swept. I mean, what's so interesting is that this is the second time Florida's ever been in the finals. Last time, of course, was back in 1996, and
where they got swept by the Avalanche.
Right, and that Game 3 win was the first ever win they've had as a franchise in the Stanley Cup Final. And I think with how historic that win was, that's going to bring them even more momentum into Game 4. Now, you mentioned Vegas, they need some more guys stepping up. You saw guys like Brett Howden step up, Nick Waugh, Alec Martinez even scored a goal in Game 2. You've seen lots of players step up on the bottom six for Vegas in those first 2 games, but again, very quiet in Game 3. Interesting to bring up Carlson, and Carlson's a guy where, again, had a great conference final, scored some big goals versus Dallas, has not scored in the final, but he's made some plays, and he's been in the dirty areas where his defense has really outshined his offensive struggles. For a guy like William Karlsson, and you want him to score more, how can he score more, in your opinion, while having that strong defensive play, especially in Game 4 tonight?
I mean, well, it's a good point you bring up there because, like, Karlsson, like, as you mentioned, like, more on the defensive side, but it's like, I mean, of course, I don't expect everyone to be Bobby Orr, like, the defenseman who can just score at will, but it's like, it just comes down to the moments where it's like, I mean, the Stanley Cup Finals, you have your dominant guys, and you have the guys who turn from unsung heroes to guys who have a statue like built right outside the Coliseum. But like I see with Karlsson is like he has that potential like for like to like put in the offensive firepower. But as you mentioned before, like he's quite heavy on defense. Like I mean, and it's not often we see like, a defenseman that focuses a lot on offense. Like we see a lot of traditional defensemen even today. And Bobby Orr is like the one who like, revolutionized offensive minded defensemen. But I can see Karlsson stepping up in the sense that it's like when he has the ice when he has the availability of the ice that's given to him, because he makes offensive plays. Like he can skate well. He's fairly disciplined with the puck. He knows how to handle. He knows how to pass. So I could see him like shining in the brighter lights. I could see that happening. Arnav, Kapil, care to join in?
Yeah, I think the most that's a lot of good analysis from like both of you guys, but I think what surprised me the most was the way Florida was able to bounce back in Game 3 after Vegas absolutely dominated Game 1 and 2. Very lopsided scores. Game 2 was 7-2, I believe, in favor of the Knights. And, the series shifted to Florida, and the Panthers are still struggling in that game. They were able to claw back and get a win in overtime. So, I mean, that's huge for them because obviously 3-0 is not something you want to go down in. Even though it's not as rare as the NBA, it's still extremely rare that a team can come back from that. So 2-1 is a different story. We saw it with the Devils Rangers actually. A Devils fan. So like in this playoffs where the Devils actually lost 2 in New Jersey, and then they went to New York. They won both games, and then they won in 7. So, I mean, it's definitely possible. The Panthers do have to win again tonight to really make that a question. Otherwise, they're going to be in the same boat as the Heat, going down 3-1. But I mean, if they can win, they have the momentum, then I think it's anyone's series. I mean, they go back to Vegas. It's a different series when they go back to Vegas now because they'll have all the momentum here.
The problem is Florida has been shellacked at Vegas. They have not shown.
That's true. Yeah.
They haven't shown any single fight. Like they didn't show any fight in game 2 at all. Like the Panthers were excellent in game 1 until the third period happened. Then they're just dreadful in game 2.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
keep in mind, before this series began, Florida was on a 9 or 10 day hiatus of rest.
That is true.
Vegas to complete their series in the conference final versus Dallas. So what's so intriguing about all of this is that they played much better in game 1 off that rest. Game 2, okay, they get, they're getting back to, to schedule, getting things back in there, what have you. But in game 2, I mean, they dropped an egg. They dropped a complete egg, and it was not good at all. And you would have thought that game 2 would have been game 1, and game 1 would have been
right. Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because they were more flat in game 2, really, and then game 1 at least they were fighting until third period where Vegas opened up the score.
And I'll tell you this much about Sergei too, because Bobrovsky in that second game was pitiful,
dreadful.
But you look at game 3 and how he was able to bounce back and keep Florida alive, and Florida did not have the best game offensively up until Tkachuk scored. He kept them alive in the best way possible, and then guess who? Matt Tkachuk, Mr. Florida, steps up in there and is able to get the game-tying goal, send it to OT. Verhaeghe scores the winner. So, I mean, I'm kind of hitting back at this Conn Smythe Trophy conversation, but I mean, in my opinion, and again, I'm not taking away what Sergei's done. He's been remarkable as a goalkeeper all postseason long. But the guy who's won you games, who's gotten you so far, and who's been Mr. Clutch has been Matt Tkachuk. Without a question, if Florida wins the cup, he's got to be the Conn Smythe.
I completely agree. The Conn Smythe definitely goes to him. I meant, like, even if you marginally follow hockey, right, you've definitely heard his name. Like, he's come up clutch in almost every single, playoff match, playoff game, and playoff rounds, really. And, if you're gonna win a trophy like the Conn Smythe Trophy, it has to be about both clutchness and consistency, and that's what he's shown. And right now, game 4, it's in Florida, and they have to realize that this is their last chance they have to at least give the series some even ground. They can't go 3-1. They just can't.
Well, technically they could still make it even in game 6, technically, but right now they can't focus on that.
To have a game 6, you need to have a game 5.
That is true.
The idea, you can't, goose egg this game at all. To have a game 6, you need to have a game 5, and that's what you have to force right now.
Yeah.
Because you might not get the chance to play again on home court the rest of the season. Granted, there's only 2 or 3 games left, but it meant a finals thing, you need to have that home court advantage. And right now, Florida has the best chance at doing that. The Golden Knights have had home court advantage so far. All right. You split those games. You've 2-1. Now you have to have this one match here. And I guarantee if the Panthers win tonight, game 4, there's going to be game 7.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Oh,
Because they know how to win. They know when to win. And they play best down the stretch in clutchness.
It's funny because like this Stanley Cup Finals, it has a lot of similarities and a lot of differences to last year's Stanley Cup Finals, Colorado versus Tampa Bay, because it's funny because Colorado swept their conference final opponent and had a lot of rest. Tampa Bay had to go through a grueling six game series against the Rangers, and like Tampa Bay, like Florida, had their chance to steal game 1 in the on the road, and they failed to do so. Game 2, their rock solid goalie gets trounced.
And
then game 3, the goalie decides to imitate a brick wall, and then just steals. Well, you could argue like the Florida offense stole game 3 from Vegas, but it's like still like without a rock solid performance from the goaltender, neither Florida team wins game 3. So so I'd say like Bobrovsky has emulated Vasilevsky like in the first 3 games. Now, if you're Florida, you hope you don't exactly see a repeat of last year's game 4 where it goes into overtime and then Colorado puts out to go 3-1 in the series. But it's like what you do hope is and this has been another key like for Florida to win the game. You score first. I mean, I don't know why I can't speak. You score first. I mean, game 1, you saw the Vegas energy depleted when Florida scored the first goal. Like the crowd was taking it out of it. And likewise, when Florida scored the first goal in game 3, everybody in Florida was just rocking. Like if you're living in Georgia, you probably hear everyone in Florida just scream their yaps off. Like, so Florida needs to be the first team that puts the puck in the net if they want to have a chance to win. Forget but honestly, if the game was 0-0 going into the third quarter, third period, 5 minutes left to go, I give the edge to Florida because Bobrovsky, when he gets red hot, he can shut down anything. And within those 5 minutes, Matt Tkachuk is unfortunately an electric skater. And it's not just Matt Tkachuk within those 5 minutes. There's also Verhaeghe. There's also Barkov. There's also Sam Bennett. And then you also have guys like Anthony Duclair who can step up. Like, I mean, not really step up, but it's like, and like, because outside of that core offensive nucleus, there's also guys like Anthony Duclair. Then there's also guys like Luosterainen. Hell, even Radko Gudas. So like Florida with if it's a 0-0 game going into the third period and there's 5 minutes left, as much as I hate to say it, because I just hate Florida teams. Like I pretty much hate all Florida teams, but within those final 5 minutes, I'd give the edge to Florida within a tie game, 5 minutes left to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, what's so intriguing, I think you're right, Kapil, that we're gonna get a game 7, and especially if Florida wins tonight, we're gonna get 7. I mean, I saw this coming in. It's either gonna be Vegas in 6 or Florida in 7. I think. I mean, I'm gonna.
If Vegas wins tonight, they might as well win the next game and finish it over in 5.
Yeah, maybe that's exactly what Denver's hoping to do.
That's the alternate. That's
possible. Let me say one more thing before I bounce here, though. But Adin Hill is going to be also an intriguing factor. How is he going to respond? How is he going to bounce back after dropping game 3 in overtime? Because he's, in my opinion, I think he's the best player right now on that team. And look, they've got Marshall.
Best player.
I do. I think the main reason, and look, you've got Marchessault, you've got Eichel, you've got Stone, you've got all these guys, but the backbone is Adin Hill. And going in, to game 3, especially if Vegas was going to win and be 1 win away from sweeping Florida potentially, I would have had Adin Hill as my Conn Smythe. If we're looking at both teams, I'm looking at Matthew Tkachuk as the Conn Smythe favorite for Florida, and I'm looking at Adin Hill for Vegas as the favorite for the Conn Smythe for the Golden Knights. And I say Adin Hill because if you look at the kid's story, Brossoit gets hurt in round 2. Hill comes on in, plays masterful versus McDavid and company, has 38 saves in the clinching game win versus the Oilers. In the conference final, shuts out Dallas twice, especially in that 6-0 win to punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup final. And that save, game 1 save, has been and will be the save of the playoffs up until this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because that save was almost the exact same one in the Stanley Cup Finals where Vegas played before against the Capitals. The problem is that one that did not go in Vegas's favor. That was more in Holtby's favor, which took the momentum away and allowed Washington to win.
And what's so intriguing about that game is that Vegas still won that first game, even when Holtby made that save.
That is,
and the Capitals still won the cup.
Mm-hmm.
They still won the cup that year.
Yeah.
Alex freaking Ovechkin.
Yeah, I mean, but in general, I think Adin Hill is going to be a guy to watch out for, especially. And again, I've talked about him so highly. I think he's the top player right now for this Vegas team. And if Vegas is going to go up 3-1, going back to Las Vegas for Game 5, Adin Hill has to have that masterful performance level he's had versus Edmonton, versus Dallas, and even in Game 1 and Game 2 to a certain extent versus Florida. He has to be the X factor as to how Vegas wins Game 4 if they eventually win Game 4.
Yeah, I would say this one last point, and you and I can and really all four of us, I guess, we can just agree or disagree on these lists. If like obviously the series is far from over right now. Like
it's not.
But I just want to make this interesting point before we run out of time here. Like, I mean, not really a point, just make a list here. Like, if we were to compile like as of right now, a top 3 list for each team for likely Conn Smythe winners, I'd say this. So for Vegas, I mean, and Alex, Adin Hill's been fantastic, but I still think if Vegas wins the cup, the number 1 favorite would be Marchessault. Then 2, I'd put Adin Hill. Then 3, I'd put Mark Stone. For Florida, I'm very biased towards the goaltenders because for a very simple reason, 2011 Tim Thomas, he almost single-handedly willed the Bruins to the Stanley Cup Finals championship. So for Florida, I put Bobrovsky at 1, Tkachuk at 2, and then for 3, I'd put Verhaeghe.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I agree with Verhaeghe. I agree that Marchessault and Hill are a battle for 1 and 2. I'm going to flip your list around. Hill number 1, Marchessault number 2. Stone's up there. Part of me wants to lean towards Eichel because of the 16 assists. I'm saying that because of the assists. I mean,
no, I understand that.
I mean, his playmaking has been really, really good. I also, because of how dynamic of a player and how much he does everything for his team, this is a sleeper. Watch out for Ivan Barbashev, possibly. I wouldn't be shocked if Barbashev made a last-minute push, possibly, to a Conn Smythe for the Vegas Golden Knights if they win the cup.
Well, I'd be tempted to put him there, but then again, he missed a game-winning goal opportunity in Game 3.
That's true. Yeah. Keep in mind, Game 4's tonight, Game 5's coming up, Game 6 maybe, Game 7 maybe. Who knows? There's still 5 more crack or 5 more or 4 rather cracks at the end.
Yeah.
Can't anymore. But So, I think that, and I think for Florida, I mean it's got to be Matt Tkachuk, Mr. Florida. But behind him, I'll put Sergei. And I'll throw in a guy like Verhaeghe. I mean, Verhaeghe's been great. I'd also put in Brandon Montour for argument's sake.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Because I mean, he has been the definition of a true offensive defenseman the entire postseason long run for Florida. So if you're taking out Verhaeghe, you can bounce in Montour there too. I mean, in general, I think Florida wins in general in 7 games, and I think Matt Tkachuk will be the MVP of this year's postseason.
I mean, either way, regardless of how this series ends, it's going to end with the team winning on the road. Like that's what I see. But Kapil, Arnav, you guys care to make your Conn Smythe list for each team?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it. I mean, I guess Vegas, I kind of agree with what you guys have been saying with Hill and Marchessault, and maybe have a guy like Stone in there as well. And then for Florida, I think it has to be Tkachuk and then Sergei Bobrovsky. And I like what we're seeing from a guy like Montour as well. So yeah, that'll probably be my, I guess, top 3 for each side.
All right, how about you, Mr. Nathan?
Matthew Tkachuk is by far obviously my pick for Conn Smythe. Been playing well. Bobrovsky, if Florida wins, obviously is also a really, really popular name. Other than that, Marchessault, I mean, he's been playing, really, really well. And Aiden Hill, he's probably like I know he's in the top, 2 or 3, but that's kind of like my dark horse sort of pick.
Oh, not really much of a dark horse if he's in the top 2 or 3,
Yeah.
but I see what you're saying.
But like Marchessault, right? He's obviously the Vegas's favorite. So I mean,
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So that's where that's where I'm trying to say, right? I mean, like, has Aiden Hill, had the effect of Marchessault? Not nearly, but he definitely deserves, a good long look or two at deserving the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if especially if he can at least try and hold Florida to maybe 2 games combined over these next 2 games. It's on him really to make sure that Vegas can take this game back to Vegas for the next game. If he can, defend Bobrovsky and Florida, they're gonna win the series. So that's why that's my dark horse.
All right. I guess one last question before Alex, you have to dip. Let's see. Game 4 tonight. Forget which team scores first, because like they'll be answered with who we say. But who's scoring the first goal?
The first goal. That's a great question. Florida, I think, gets the first goal regardless.
Florida gets the first goal. I can agree. I think Verhaeghe's going to score this one.
Ooh, that's a good pick.
I'm going with a guy who you're not going to expect. This guy scored the first goal of the entire finals for either team. Eric
Staal.
Eric
Staal.
Yeah.
Home will get the opening strike for the Florida Panthers in Game 4.
That's a good
I don't
pick.
know why. I have a strange feeling. Sasha Barkov.
I can see, I can see Barkov too. That's a possibility. There's a range of guys we could pick from for sure. So,
all right.
Yeah.
How about you, Devil? What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Matt Tkachuk. I feel like it's his time to score the opening goal.
So original.
Well, the thing is, like, Matt Tkachuk is like
it could be like a number of guys for sure.
So for Matt Tkachuk, right? He doesn't need to score the first goal to really, it's scoring the last goal. Like if he touches the ball last, right? You can almost count on it that it's going to be either a game tire or a game winner. So he might not score first, but he is there when it counts. So I think Verhaeghe is going to open up the scoring tonight. Then if it does go to overtime, it's going to be Tkachuk going to take it.
Yeah, he's also getting game misconducts when it matters too. But well, then again, Game 2 is far out of reach, so I guess he got game misconducts when it didn't matter.
Fair enough. A lot of 10 minutes being thrown out there and penalties, and Game 2 was truly something else. But yeah, I mean it's
funny because it's like I believe it was like Game 2 last year, where there's a lot of game misconducts, like Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals last year, if I remember. It's either Game 2 or Game 3. I don't remember which one, where there's just like 15 different game misconducts. I mean, I'm exaggerating there, but there's just a lot of penalty minutes.
Right. Yeah. Penalty minutes. Yeah, that's been like another big thing of the series. So it's been pretty exciting so far what we've seen. Some high scoring games, Florida tighten things up. A lot of different star players from both teams, including both goalies and, quite a few offensive players and defensive players. We've got Game 4 tonight. Florida looks to tie it up. Vegas looks to go up 3-1. We're gonna step aside. Thanks for joining us, Alex. It was a pleasure having you on the show. And the 3 of us are gonna come back with some NBA coverage. So you've been listening to the starting lineup. I'm Arnav. We've got Kapil, Jitesh, and Alex, and we will see you with the NBA coverage.
Thanks so much for all your expertise, Alex. It was really informative.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Catch you later.
All right. Yep. See you guys.